So one of the things that I think is hard is looking in the mirror. And when you have to look and see what's really there as opposed to what we want to believe in our head is there. I remember sitting down at a holiday meal in Michigan with some of my high school friends, and one of my high school friends' wife turned to me and her husband and me and said, "You were the two most conceited people in the entire high school." And I went, "Well, there were over 2,000 people in that high school. That's quite a statement." I said, "Really?" And she said, "Yes." It was one of the first times I looked and realized I don't know how to be a loving person. Can God teach us how to love? Here's the key: God's path. Job 36:13. People who don't care about God are always bitter. Easy reading version of the Bible. Even when he punishes them, they refuse to pray to him for help. And when God says punish, it doesn't mean he's trying to beat you down. He's trying to get you and I on the right path. So even when God is trying to point you in the right path, put you in with the right friends, get you with the right influences, you don't listen. You don't even pray. You don't ask for help. And so what do we learn from this? We have to care about God in order to become loving. Here's an important thing. You say, "I don't know if God can really help me." Here's an important stat. Scientific American, a scientific magazine, had an article, "Psychiatry Needs to Get Right with God," written by the chief psychiatrist at McLean Hospital. In the past year, American mental health sank to the lowest point in history. Incidents of mental disorders increased by 50% compared with before the pandemic. Yet the only group to see improvements in mental health during the past year were those who attended religious services at least weekly, either virtually or in person. That is a profound statistic that lets us know God is the one who can help us. God is the one who can teach us. And this chief psychiatrist said, "Look, we have got to get every psychiatrist and psychologist in the country to understand that they have to embrace spirituality, not reject it, because the results we're seeing are that people who have spirituality, people who know about God, have a better chance of getting their mental health recovery than those who do not." And so learning to love comes down to God, 1 Thessalonians 4:9. But we don't need to write to you about the importance of loving each other, for God himself has taught you to love one another. God actually gets involved in our lives, helps us have the right friends, helps us have the right people that teach us and work with us to be able to become loving. If we're not loving, we can't do it on our own. We need God. In John 15:9, this is why God gives us Jesus. We can miss it sometimes. The reason God gives us Jesus, John 15:9, "I have loved you even as the Father has loved me. Remain in my love. When you obey my commandments, you remain in my love. It's just as I obey my Father's commandments and remain in his love." The Bible is not there to burden us. The Bible is there when you obey the scriptures, you become more loving. I become more loving. Obedience to God is motivated by love, and it makes us more loving. Verse 11, "I've told you these things so that you'll be filled with joy." Yes, your joy will overflow. "This is my commandment. Love each other in the same way I have loved you." There's no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friend. Jesus is saying, my redefinition of love, how you're going to learn to love, is you have to love the way he loved. That's why reading the Bible and reading about Jesus is the best way to learn to love. And the way he loved is he sacrificed himself for those he loved. If we don't sacrifice, we're not loving. That's the bottom line. In order to overcome dark times, we have to unplug. We have to unplug from the television. We have to unplug from movies. We have to unplug from magazines. We have to unplug from books. We have to unplug from apps on our phone that fill us with dark thoughts, dark times, and get us more anxious and more afraid. You say, "I really want to be aware." Trust me, in this 24/7 news cycle world, you're going to always be aware. The key is, are you ever going to be light where you're not always burdened? Forgive. In order to overcome angry thoughts, we have to believe in forgiveness. I think forgiveness is underestimated. What do we have to forgive? Who do we have to forgive? Start with this one. Forgive yourself. The most difficult person to forgive is usually ourselves. Because in our heart, we feel and see the damage that we do to others, and it brings us down. We can get depressed and discouraged We don't talk about it, but we feel it inside. Start with forgiving yourself, and God's going to have to help with that. When God forgives us and we know he forgives us, we can forgive ourselves. And once we do that, it's easy to forgive others. Pray. What happens a lot is we rage instead of pray. Pray the rage away. We end up spewing. We end up yelling. We end up ranting. You ever go online and you see people rant about stuff? And I'm on Twitter, and I'll see people, they just go off on some celebrity who doesn't even know them or care about them, but they just felt a need to rage at somebody. And you know why we rage? You know why we say such terrible things to people? Because we don't pray. When you pray and talk to God, he puts peace in your heart or my heart instead of rage. And then be grateful. Let gratitude create faith. It is impossible to have a lot of faith unless you're grateful. Those are 4 simple things we can do to let God help us be more loving. Unplug. You don't need to listen to all the anger. Forgive, pray, and be grateful. And believe it or not, if you do that, you're going to see God and help you and I be more loving people.